So, the other day, we made a video talking about the Detroit Red Wings and some of the commentary from players on the team after the season concluded. We had went over Dylan Larkin and Patrick Kane and how they, in a way, called out Steve Yzerman. Because this obviously was a pretty big point of contention when you consider what exactly their messaging was and what Yzerman did or didn't do, which prompted these comments. Essentially, we spoke out about how the Red Wings didn't really do anything at the trade deadline. And aside from making a move for Peter Mrazek, the team just kind of stood pat. The Larkin comments, which everybody was talking about in the presser, said this: "We didn't do anything. We didn't gain any momentum from the trade deadline. Guys were kind of down about it." This, of course, is from Reddit. It's just the image post with the quote attached, but we did make a video yesterday, 2 days ago, talking about those very same comments. And I wanted to revisit that conversation because the last video spoke out about Patrick Kane too. Kane also kind of said that there wasn't really much of an added boost after the deadline, etc., etc. But this video right here is being made because I wanted to open more dialogue to where exactly everything is with the Wings and how frustrating things are, potentially from Steve Yzerman's point of view too. Of course, we looked at a quote that was posted onto the Red Wings subreddit, so big shout out over to the folks over there that got a lot of these conversations going and that kind of inspired me to make this video here. The top comment on the Red Wings post says, "Admittedly, the captain probably shouldn't be saying this publicly, but if he's feeling the need to, he's gotta be incredibly fed up. I can't imagine that laying the blame at the feet of the GM and not taking any personal responsibility went over well with Steve Yzerman." That is, of course, something that I think we're going to have to address at some point if we are going to continue following the Wings and how this story unfolds, because Dylan Larkin, as we had spoken about in the last video, he essentially called out Steve Yzerman. And you could very well bring up here, hey, how is Yzerman going to respond to that? We didn't talk about that in the last video, but how is Yzerman going to react to his captain pretty much criticizing him in the media for not doing anything and not giving the team a boost or acquiring any players at the trade deadline? Another comment here says, maybe because Steve Yzerman needs to publicly take some responsibility as well, instead of just saying, "We are being patient." I have no issue with Larkin speaking up like this. The dude is passionate as hell and just wants to win. Now, there's the opposing perspective. It should be within Larkin's right to call out the GM and to say something like this that criticizes in a way how the GM did his business. If you're on the more anti-Yzerman path, which I think has started opening up a little bit more over the past few months here, people are really starting to get on Stevie Y, and it's not just folks in the Detroit beat, but it's ultimately going to depend on where you lie, I guess. Multiple things, though, can also be true. As bald-ass head coach says, 1. Steve Yzerman did not ice the best team and mostly stood pat at the deadline when they needed reinforcements. 2. Dylan Larkin also disappeared after the Four Nations tournament and didn't show up during some very important games down the stretch. 3. Dylan Larkin earned the right to be frustrated and voice those frustrations in private to the GM. And 4. Dylan Larkin did not earn the right to throw the GM under the bus publicly. I don't think you can disagree with any of these 4 points. Either of these guys could very well be put to blame here because they didn't really do as much as they could have. And in regards to Larkin's commentary, sure, he has the right to feel frustrated, but maybe not necessarily the right to publicly voice it out, which I guess is making a big statement in and of itself if you say it to the media in the way that he did. But then again, it goes back to, hey, it's been 9 years without a playoff drought. Hey, guess what? The Pistons made the playoffs. And so, hey, the Red Wings are now suffering the longest playoff drought in Michigan, or whatever the crazy stat is. Frustration is warranted. But again, publicly talking about it, that's something else entirely. And my only question here now is, how does this get handled? Here's another reply that I thought was interesting. In the Ozzy and Keats episode with Chelios, Chris Chelios mentioned that the Wings need to pick themselves up and stop feeling sorry for themselves. This was clearly a big thing behind the scenes, and it was out there enough for former players to know what was going on. I wonder where this will all lead. And then you have some varying replies. One goes out there and says that no one is mentally tough enough to spend a decade getting pounded into the ground. Slowly playing a rebuild to this extent builds a culture of losing. And a bunch of other replies say, hey, McClellan essentially said the same thing here as Chelios. The team has to stop feeling sorry for themselves. This is loser crap from our leadership group. So again, variance. No one's gonna fully agree with this 100%. We've got a lot of people on both sides of the fence here. But I think there also is a thought about this entire thing that we all can, loosely, agree on. And I wanted to bring this up here too because I think it opens the door to some bigger picture type stuff. On Biver 9871 says, I'm a bit, I don't know if worried is the right word, but I'm curious if the Four Nations tournament finally gave Larkin a taste of what it would be like to be a part of a high-vibes winning enterprise, and his mentality about the Detroit Red Wings shifted subtly but inexorably upon his return. Have you ever been in a bad relationship or a crap job, and you kind of knew it but you didn't really have the motivation to do anything about it, and then suddenly you got a glimpse of what it might be like to be in a good relationship or a good job, and suddenly what was once suboptimal became almost intolerable? Yeah. And to further the analogies, one of the replies says, I play on 2 beer league teams. One is ran well with ambition and we win games. Even if you lose, the effort is there. The other team is run half-ass, and if we don't make the playoffs, it's almost expected. They definitely give me different energy, and playing for the mediocre team doesn't inspire more hustle when the people around you don't give a damn. And there also is another conversation to be had as to Larkin being the captain. He should be the guy who is giving the team its emotional energy. He's one of the people in the locker room who dictates that. He is supposed to be one of the main leadership pieces of the team. And there is something to be said about Larkin also not really playing all too well post Four Nations. So this worry that some fans are starting to bring up, saying, hey, like, Dylan Larkin was a clutch player at the Four Nations face-off. He got a taste of a really competitive and eager-to-win team. Now he's back in Detroit. The team doesn't really perform all too well. The team doesn't get any better or get any reinforcements at the deadline. And Larkin goes out there and calls out the team for not adding those pieces after the season ends. Folks are going out there and saying that the Wings need to stop feeling sorry for themselves and get better. But folks are also calling out Dylan Larkin for not playing all too well after that, whether it be from a state of indifference or a state of just giving up on the team. My question to you here is, are these concerns valid? And number 2, this is more of a looser, open-ended question. If you had to place blame, or if you had to show worry on either of these parties, Larkin or Yzerman, Larkin for his subpar play and the very frustrated comments that he made, and Stevie Y for the assembling of the team that he has, who do you think is more in the right, and who do you think is more reasonable to get upset at, Larkin or Yzerman? I don't want to go out there and start too many fires and say, oh yeah, it's an Yzerman versus Larkin thing. No, it's not like that. It's not like Pettersson versus Miller or whatever that was. But there are 2 sides here that I think you can go out there and critique at different ends. So I wanted to open the dialogue floor up to y'all in the comment section below. Let me know your opinions about each of these issues here. Larkin and Yzerman. Things are getting worrying. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.